pleased to introduce her piece.
Thank you for inviting me here today to share my work. Today I'll be exploring the theme of entitlement, a theme throughout history which has rightfully or wrongfully caused people to fight for what they believe is rightfully theirs. This has often caused the underdog to rise up and grab that righteous moment. But on the other hand, it's caused conflict, prejudice, and war. What makes you believe you're more deserving? Why did Hitler believe he was more superior to the Jews? Will men and women ever be equal? And do black lives really matter? Today I'll be exploring entitlement in various points of views. A woman living in a dystopian world where women are finally getting the upper hand. A stepsister who selfishly degrades her own sister out of jealousy. And to end, a voice from a place where strange fruit grow from trees. My first piece is The Power, written by Naomi Alderman. All over the world, women are finally discovering that they have power. With the flick of their fingers, they can inflict terrible pain. Suddenly, men have no control. I'll be playing the role of Margaret, the town mayor, who is coming to terms with this new pandemic. It has to be fake. Fox News is saying it's not. Fox News says whatever makes people tune in to Fox News. What are these lines coming from her hands? Electricity? I mean, where'd they come from? There are lots of nut dogs out there, Daniel. Fakers, scammers. There's been more since that video came out. 4 or 5? 4 or 5 every hour? Well, what do you want me to do about it? Close the schools? Can you imagine what I'll get from the parents? Can you imagine millions of voting parents and what they'll do to me that closed the schools early today? This thing has broken out across the world. No one knows what the hell is going on. A spokesman from the CDC saying it was a virus, not very severe. It just seemed like little young girls electrocuting people with their hands. That's impossible, right? That's crazy. Apparently, a lab in Japan powered their Christmas trees from a tank of electric eels. We can't do that with these girls, now can we, Christian? It's a new kind of fighting. Which leaves most boys breathless and twitching, with scars like unfurling leaves, winding up their arms and legs and the soft tissue of their middle. It's a weapon. Something these kids are bringing into school. A girl was doing it to a boy in the park for no reason. And he was bleeding. But bleeding from the eyes? Separate the girls from the boys. My next piece is The Stepsister Speaks Out by Peg Carrot. I'm playing the role of the ugly stepsister, who thinks that she has the upper hand and deserves the prince over Cinderella. It ain't easy being the ugly stepsister. Everyone feels so sorry for poor little Cinderella. But what about me? I deserve a little sympathy too. Does my fairy godmother ever turn up with the magic wand? Does the prince ever dance with me? At the ball. Not on your life. The most I can ever hope for, my pumpkins, is a decent piece of pie. And as for the rats, well, rats are rats. Their skinny tails and sneaky eyes, nibbling and gnawing at the garbage. I never saw one yet turned into a coachman. If you ask me, that Cinderella is weird. Certainly, she isn't normal. Besides the fact that she has naturally curly hair and wears those 4.5 shoes, and she is so good-natured, and that's downright sickening. If you had to sweep and clean and dust all day long, you wouldn't go singing to the birds. Of course you wouldn't. No sensible person would. Some people say that I'm jealous of her. And maybe I am, but with good reason. I subsisted on 700 calories a day for 3 whole weeks. And I did my leg lift exercises faithfully. I got a perm and a facial and a manicure. And I even bought myself a new gown. Blue, velvet, designer label. I mean, I was ready. Pretty! I thought to myself, here I come. And what happened? Little Cindy, who has never seen the inside of a health club in her life, and doesn't know the difference between a carrot stick and a chocolate eclair, bolts off to the ball and slams the prince. It isn't fair. It really isn't fair. My last piece is a poem written by Abel Miracle called Strange Fruit. This poem was later developed into a song by the famous jazz musician Billie Holiday. Holiday quoted, "I was never allowed to visit a restaurant or the bar like the other members of my band did. I was asked to enter and leave through the kitchen. But I was also denied fatal treatment for lung disorder due to racial prejudice." Southern trees bear strange fruit. Blood on the leaves, and blood on the roots. Black bodies swinging in southern trees. Strange fruit growing in poplar trees. The pastoral scene of the gallant south. The bulging eye and the twisted mouth. The scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. The sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is the fruit, for the crows to pluck, for the wind to gather, for the rain to suck, for the trees to drop, for the sun to rot. Here is a strange and bitter crop. The poem, written in 1938, protests the lynching of Black Americans and is very relevant today with the Black Lives Matter movement. Wearing a shiny badge should mean you have the privilege to protect others and doesn't give you the right to kneel on someone's neck for 8 minutes, 46 seconds. Why didn't George Floyd's last words, "I can't breathe," matter? Entitlement separates us. Our race, social class, education shouldn't make you better from anyone else. Wouldn't the world be a better place if we worked a little harder on gratitude, not privilege?
So if we could give a very warm hand of applause, please, to Kate Hewlin.
Good evening. My name is Kate Hewlin. Tonight I want to explore the idea of perseverance. The great American poet, Maya Angelou, once said that in life you may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter these defeats, so you can know who you are. Through my recital this evening, I hope to delve into how different writers convey the challenge of perseverance. I would like to begin with the poem Tregardock by John Benjamin. In this poem, Benjamin is hurt and dismayed by the press and considers suicide. A mist that from the moor arose, in seafoam wraps Port Isaac Bay. The moan of warning from Trevose makes grimmer this October day. Only the shore and cliffs are clear. Gigantic slithering shelves of slate in waiting awfulness appear like journalism, full of hate. On the steep path, a bramble leaf stands motionless and wet with dew. The grass bends down, the brackens brown, the grey-green gorse alone is new. Cautious, my sliding footsteps go to quarried rock and dripping cave. The ocean, leaden still below, hardly has strength to lift a wave. I watch it crisp into its height and flap exhausted on the beach. The long surf, menacing and white, hissing as far as it can reach. The dunlin do not move. Each bird is stationary on the sand, as if a spirit in it heard the final end of sea and land. And I, on my volcano edge, exposed to ridicule and hate, still do not dare to leap the ledge and smash to pieces on the slate. Thank goodness Betjeman walked down from that cliff and kept writing beautiful poetry. Perseverance can also be found in pursuing an aim, even when it seems impossible. Take Mary Lennox in The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, for instance. Despite Mr. Craven's determined effort to prevent anyone from finding the secret garden, she did not give up. In fact, here is the moment she finally succeeded. Mary stepped close to the robin, and suddenly a gust of wind swung aside some loose ivy. She jumped towards it and caught it in her hand. This she did because she had seen something under it. It was the knob of a door. Mary's heart began to thump, and her hands to shake a little in her delight and excitement. The robin kept singing away and tilting his head on one side. What was this under her hands, which her fingers found a hole in? It was the lock of the door, which had been closed 10 years. She put her hand in her pocket and drew out the key, and found it fitted the keyhole. She put the key in and turned it. It took 2 hands to do it, but it did turn. Then she took a long breath and looked behind her up the long walk to see if anyone was coming. No one ever did come. She held back the swinging curtain of ivy and pushed back the door, which opened slowly, slowly. Then she slipped through it and shut it behind her, looking about her and breathing quite fast with excitement, wonder, and delight. She was standing inside the secret garden. Children can be indomitable, can't they? My last piece is about another child who remains positive in a very difficult situation. In this scene from Every Brilliant Thing by Duncan Macmillan, a child tries to help her mother, who has attempted to kill herself, to see what things make life worth living. The list began after her first attempt. A list of everything brilliant about the world, everything worth living for. 1, ice cream. 2, water fights. 3, staying up past your bedtime and being allowed to watch TV. 4, the colour yellow. 5, things with stripes. 6, roller coasters. 7, people falling over. All things that at 7 I thought were really good, but not necessarily things Mum would agree with. I started the list on the 9th of November 2012. Up until that day, my only experience of death was that of my dog, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Bones was older than me. He was really sick, so the vet came around to put him down. I held Sherlock Bones, who I had known my entire life. I held him as he died, and he became lighter or heavier. I'm not sure, but different. And that was my experience of death. A loved one becoming an object and being taken away forever. It's the 9th of November 2013. It's dark and it's late. All the other kids had gone home long ago. Eventually, my dad pulls up. Now, normally it's my mum who picks me up. Normally she's on time. Normally I travel in the back because I am 7 and I make things sticky. But this time, he opens the door to the front passenger seat. Dad looked at me. I looked at him. When something bad happens, your body fills up before your brain can know what's happening. Eventually, I got in the car. We sat in silence. The only thing he said to me was, "Your mother's done something stupid." I didn't know what that meant. At the hospital, Mum saw me and said, "Not her." So I sat in the corridor next to an old couple who bought me a carton of juice and some chocolate from the machine. I don't know exactly when I had the idea for the list, but it was here with the old people that I started to write it down. 8 juice, 9 chocolate, 10 kind old people who aren't weird and don't smell unusual. By the time the list was 8 pages long and had 314 things in it, I left it on her pillow with the title, "Every Brilliant Thing." I find that scene very touching and inspiring too. Even when things are really hard, she finds things to be joyful about. Perseverance is a combination of positivity and patience, the ability to keep going through the sad days, knowing better times will come. This is summed up really well in the philosophy of Winnie the Pooh, when he says, "Rivers know this. There is no hurry. We shall get there someday."
Good evening, my name is James Bamford and my theme for tonight is compulsion, the state or condition of being compelled. My first character is a young man compelled by his desire for vengeance. Act 2, Scene 2 of Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I! Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit that from her workings all his visage wand? Tears in his eyes, distractions in his aspect, a broken voice, and his whole function suiting with forms to his conceit. And all for nothing. For Hecuba. What's Hecuba to him, or he to Hecuba, that he should weep for her? What would he do, had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? He would drown the stage with tears, and cleave the general ear with horrid speech, make mad the guilty, and appall the free, confound the the ignorant, and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. Yet I, a dull and muddy metalled rascal, peak like John o' Dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can say nothing, no, not for a king, upon whose property and most dear life a damn's defeat was made. Am I a coward? Who calls me villain, breaks my pater cross, plucks off my beard and blows it in my face, tweaks me by the nose, gives me the line, the throat as deep as the lungs. Who does me this? Swoons, I should take it, for it cannot be but I am pigeon-livered and lack gall to make oppression bitter, or this I should have fattened the region's kites with this slave's offal. Bloody, bawdy villain! Remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless villain! Oh, vengeance! Why, what an ass am I! This is most brave that I, the son of a dear father, murdered, prompted to my revenge by heaven and hell, must, like a whore, unpack my heart with words and fall a-cursing like a very drab, the scullion, violent foe about my brain. I have heard that guilty creatures sitting at a play, that by the very cunning of the scene being struck so to the soul that presently they have proclaimed their malefactions. For murder, though it have no tongue, will speak with most miraculous organ. I'll have these players play something like the murder of my father before mine uncle. I'll observe his looks, I'll tempt him to the quick. If he but blench, I know my course. The spirit that I have seen may be the devil, and the devil have power to assume a pleasing shape, yea, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me. I'll have grounds more relative than this. The play's the thing, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. My next character is compelled by art to write. In this scene, he tries to explain his tortured existence to Nina and dispel any notion of the wonderful, brilliant life she perceives. The Seagull by Anton Chekhov. Act 2, Trigorin. So, all right, let's talk about my wonderful, brilliant life. Now let's see. Where shall we begin? You know how some people become obsessed with something? Like the moon, for instance. Well, I guess you might say that writing is my moon. All I think about night and day is writing. I must write, I must write, I must! And as soon as I finish writing one story, I have to start another, and then another and another. It never ends! I ask you, what's so beautiful and brilliant about that? It's a crazy and lonely way to live. Here I am, excited, talking to you. But at the same time, I can't take my mind off my work. The story that's waiting for me in my room. I see that cloud, and I see it as a grand piano, so I make a mental note of it for my story. A cloud that looked like a grand piano floated by. I smell the heliotrope, and I capture it in my mind so that I can use it for a description of a summer's evening. I catch myself listening to everything that I say, and everything that you say too. I look up all the words and phrases in my literary storehouse. Who knows when they might come in handy? Do you think I've lost my mind? Do you think my friends treat me like a normal person? What are you writing now, they ask. When's your next story? It's always the same. They give me attention, they flatter me, but between you and me, I think it's phony. They're deceiving me like you do a sick person. I'm afraid sometime they're going to grab me from behind and cart me off to the asylum like they did that crazy man in Gogol. I do find pleasure in my writing, though, and when I'm reading proofs. But once it's published, I hate it, and I wish I'd never written it. I feel angry, irritable, rotten, like it was all a mistake. And then the public reads it, and you hear, "Ah yes, very clever, he's gifted, but he's not Tolstoy." Or, "Ah yes, very good, but Turgenev's Fathers and Sons was better." To my dying day, I'll be clever and gifted. Nothing more. Compulsions are often a response to anxiety, and my next character, Charlie Brown, is no exception. Inspired by the comic strip Peanuts by Charlie M. Schultz, this monologue is taken from the musical comedy You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, by Clark Gessner. I think lunchtime is about the worst time of the day for me. Always having to sit here alone. Of course, sometimes mornings aren't so pleasant either. Waking up and wondering if anyone would really miss me if I never got out of bed. Then there's the night too. Oh well, I guess I better see what I've got. Peanut butter. Some psychiatrists say that people who eat peanut butter sandwiches are lonely. I guess they're right. There's that cute little red-headed girl eating her lunch over there. I wonder what she would do if I went over and asked if I could sit with her. She'd probably laugh right in my face. It's hard on a face when it gets laughed in. There's a space next to her on the bench. There's no reason why I couldn't just go over there and sit there. I could do that right now. All I'd have to do is stand up. I'm standing up. I'm sitting down. I'm a coward. She's looking at me! She's looking at me! Lunchtime is among the worst times of the day for me. If that girl is looking at me with this stupid bag over my face, she must think I'm the biggest fool alive. On the other hand, I can't tell if she's looking at me until I take it off. Then again, if I never take it off, I'll never have to know if she was looking at me or not. On the other hand, it's very hard to breathe in here. She's not looking at me. Oh well, another lunch hour over with only 2,863 to go. In conclusion, compulsive behaviour is universal and inevitable. In classical theatre, Hamlet's compulsion leads to his demise. In The Seagull, Trigorin doesn't find contentment. And in the musical comedy, Charlie Brown goes on to realise being a good man means trying your best and making the most of the things you've been given in life. But what is the solution? My last piece this evening offers us some guidance on how to navigate not only our compulsive nature, but whatever fate may deal us. An extract from the novel Kafka by the Shore by Haruki Murakami. Sometimes fate is like a small sandstorm that keeps changing directions. You change direction, but the storm chases you. Over and over you play this out, like some ominous dance with death just before dawn. Why? Because this storm isn't something that blew in from far away, something that has nothing to do with you. This storm is you, something inside of you. So all you can do is give into it. Walk straight inside the storm, closing your eyes and plugging up your ears so the sand doesn't get in, and walk through it, step by step. There's no sun there, no moon, no direction, no sense of time. Just fine white sand swirling up into the sky like pulverized bones. That's the kind of sandstorm you need to imagine. And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure, in fact, whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain. When you walk out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what this storm is all about. Thank you.
Right, Isabella Lane, up there, if you put your hands together, please, for Izzy Lane.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I would like to explore one of the world's most unique relationships. Because no matter who we are, we all have one thing in common. We were all born from a mother. Now, some say the relationship between mother and child starts from the moment we're born. And so, my first piece tonight is a beautiful poem that shows a child's view of their mother from infant to adulthood. Mother, A Cradle to Hold Me by Maya Angelou. It is true, I was created in you. It is also true that you were created for me. I owned your voice. It was pitched and tuned to soothe me. Your arms were moulded into a cradle to hold me. The scent of your body was the air perfumed for me to breathe. Mother, during those early, dearest days, I did not think you had a large life which included me. For I had a life that was only you. Time passed steadily and drew us apart. I was unwilling. I feared if I let you go, you would leave me eternally. You smiled at my fears, saying I could not stay in your lap forever. That one day you would have to stand, and where would I be? You smiled again. I did not. Without warning, you left me, but returned again immediately. But relief did not rest with me easily. Each time you re-entered my world, you brought assurance. Slowly, I gained confidence. You thought you knew me, but I did know you. You thought you were watching me, but I did hold you securely in my sight, recording every moment, memorizing your smiles, tracing your frowns. In your absence, I rehearsed you, the way you had of singing on a breeze whilst a sob lay at the root of your song. I loved you even during the years when you knew nothing and I knew everything. I loved you still, condescendingly of course, from my high perch of teenage wisdom. I spoke sharply of you, often because you were slow to understand. I grew older and was stunned to find how much knowledge you had gleaned, and so quickly. Mother, I have learned enough now to know that I have learned nearly nothing. Let me thank you that my selfishness, ignorance and mockery did not cause you to discard me like a broken doll. Let me thank you that you still find something in me to cherish, to admire, and to love. It is true that a mother shapes their child throughout life, but this can also be said to work in reverse, that a child can change a mother's perspective. To fully explore this relationship, I wanted to look at things from the viewpoint of a contemporary mother. And how better than an extract from the comical Confessions of a Scary Mommy by Jill Smockler. There are a million ironies in motherhood. The day you decide to change the sheets will inevitably be the night your child wets the bed. With a million toys in the house, your kid, without a doubt, will prefer to play with the pots and pans, and your children will always fall asleep early for the sitter, who gets paid by the hour to entertain them. It's unfair, uncool, and unjust, but unfortunately, that's the way it is. Perhaps, though, the biggest irony of all is, despite never actually being alone, can you remember the last time you peed in peace? As a mother, you can feel totally isolated. A few years ago, I was a stay-at-home mum to 3 kids. I was living in a new house in a new town, and I was bordering on miserable. A fellow mum from down the street stopped by to ask how my days were going. Half jokingly, I responded, "Well, the baby's a bit of an arsehole, but he'll go out of it." The look on her face was enough to tell me that not only had I offended her, but that we would not be spending our afternoons commiserating together. She had 3 young kids as well. Was she not slowly going insane? Did she not lock herself in the bathroom, ignoring the whining on the other side of the door? Apparently not. Or she faked it a hell of a lot better than I did. We like to paint motherhood as this picture-perfect experience, filled with idyllic children and beaming mothers. These moments of motherhood are indeed miraculous, but they can often be few and far between. What if the baby never latches properly and breastfeeding becomes a nightmare? What if, when her teenage child leaves for the night, a mother breathes a sigh of relief that the drama is temporarily on hold? Do these things make motherhood any less perfect? Of course not. They make motherhood real. Becoming a mother is an event that brings so much joy. The loss of a mother is heart-wrenching. My final piece tonight is the closing monologue of Andrew Bovell's poignant production, Things I Know to Be True. My character, 19-year-old Rosie, deals with the news that her mother has suddenly died. I hang up. Get out of the car. Standing on the edge of the road. I'm not sure whether I should turn back or keep going. I can hardly breathe. I'm somewhere between who I was who I'm going to be. I want my dad. I want my brothers and my sister. I want my mum. I want my mum. But I can't think of them not now, because if I do, I think my chest might explode. I think I might literally fall to pieces. First my arms will come off, and then my legs, and then my head, and to stop myself from coming apart, I make a list of all the things I know to be true. I know that having your heart broken by a boy from Spain is not the worst thing that will happen to you. I know that people aren't perfect. Even the people you love. Especially not the people you love, and I know that love isn't enough to save them. I know what grief tastes like. It's bitter. And I know what it sounds like. It's loud, and I know that on the day my mother died, my childhood finally ended. So I sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mum. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. And when God takes you back, he'll say, hallelujah, you're home.
Finally, the last of our seniors, Alexander Spencer-Jones, please.
The Self-Unseeing is a famous poem by Thomas Hardy and describes seeing your childhood home through adult eyes. But is it about failing to see what is around us, or about our inability to see ourselves? The characters I have chosen to portray today all share a sense of hopelessness about the events unfolding around them. For example, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who are two hapless young men who have been tasked for guarding Hamlet. In this scene, they have been left waiting. And waiting. I play Rosencrantz.
Do you ever think of yourself as actually dead? Lying in a box with a lid on it? Nor do I really. It's silly to be depressed by it, isn't it? I mean, one thinks of it like being alive in a box, but one keeps forgetting to take into account the fact that one is dead. Which should make all the difference, shouldn't it? I mean, you'd never know you were in a box, would you? It would just be like being asleep in a box. Not that I'd like to be asleep in a box, mind you. Not without any air in it. You'd wake up dead for a start. And then where would you be? in a box. And that's the bit I don't like, frankly. That's why I don't think about it. Because you'd be helpless, wouldn't you? Stuffed in a box like that. I mean, you'd be in there forever. Even taking into account the fact you're dead, it isn't a pleasant thought. Especially if you're dead. I mean, really, ask yourself. If I asked you now, I'm going to stuff you in a box, would you rather be dead or alive? Naturally, you'd say alive. Life in a box is better than no life at all, I expect. I mean, you'd have a chance at least. You could lie there thinking, well, at least I'm not dead. In a minute, someone's going to be banging on the lid and tell me to come out. Hey, you! What's your name? Come out of there! I wouldn't think about it if I were you. You'd only get depressed. Eternity is a terrible thought. I mean, when's it going to end?
My Family and Other Animals describes Gerald Durrell's experiences of growing up on an idyllic Greek island. The following extract perfectly sums up a family event which may have gone unappreciated at the time. It is Gerald's birthday, and Larry has built him a boat. At last, we got the cork from the bottle, and I announced that I christened this ship the Bootle Bum Trinket. Then, I slapped her rotund backside with the bottle, with the unhappy result that half a pint of white wine splashed over Larry's head. Look out! Look out! He remonstrated. Which one of us are you supposed to be launching? But at last, we cast her off the jetty with a mighty heave. Now, said Leslie, organising things, let's get the mast in. Margot, if you hold her nose, that's it. Now, Peter, if you'll get into the stern, Larry and I will hand you the mast. This mast looks a bit long to me, Les, said Larry, eyeing it critically. Nonsense. It'll be fine once it's in. Now, are you ready, Peter? Peter nodded, braced himself, clasped the mast firmly in both hands, and plunged it into the socket. Then he stood back, and the Bootle Bum Trinket turned turtle. Peter, clad in his one decent suit, disappeared with scarcely a splash, and all that remained on the surface of the water was his hat, the mast, and the Bootle Bum Trinket's bright orange bottom. He'll drown! He'll drown! Screamed Margot, who always tended to look on the dark side in a crisis. Nonsense! It's not deep enough, said Leslie. I told you that mast was too long, said Larry. You can't fit a 20-foot mast into a thing that looks like a washtub and expect it to keep upright. If you're so damn clever, why didn't you build the boat? Oh, thank God he's come up, said Margot, as the bedraggled and spluttering Peter rose to the surface. We hauled him out and hurried him back to the house, while the Bootle Bum Trinket, tied to the end of the jetty, floated there in all her glory, looking like a very vivid, overweight Manx cat. While Gerald Durrell can describe a happy, if a little eccentric childhood, the same cannot be said for my next character, the one running rings around poor Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Shakespeare's Prince Hamlet, who in this scene is struggling to come to terms with his father's death and his mother's speedy marriage to his uncle Claudius. This too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. Or that the everlasting had not fixed his gun against self-slaughter. Oh God. God. How weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Violent! No, fie. 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows the seed. Things rank and gross in nature possesses it merely. That it should come to this! But 2 months dead! Nay, not so much, not 2. So excellent. excellent a king that was to this Hyperion to a satyr. So loving to my mother that he might not beteem the winds of heaven and visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth! Must I remember? Why, she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed her. And yet, within a month, let me not think on't. Frailty! Thy name is woman! Oh God! A beast that once discourse of reason would have mourned longer. Married with my uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month, she married, oh, with most wicked speed, to both with such dexterity to incestuous shades! It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. I'd just like to finish by going back to the poem I mentioned at the beginning. So as you listen to Hardy's words, perhaps take a moment to reflect on the life you have, and maybe try to see yourself the way others see you. The Self-Unseeing by Thomas Hardy. Here is the ancient floor, foot worn and hollowed and thin. Here was the former door, where the dead feet walked in. She sat here in her chair, smiling into the fire. He who played stood there, bowing it higher and higher. Childlike, I danced in a dream. Blessings emblazoned that day. Everything glowed with a gleam. And yet, we were looking away. Thank you.
So we're going to try not to talk for too long, but when you watch work like that, you want to sort of feedback. So Kambua kicked us off. Where are you? You need to wave. Hello. I just thought it was such an impassioned introduction, and I think you've got a lovely warmth and charisma and energy and sincerity. So I think you fuse the two things that we really need for performance really well. I loved your naturalness and your spontaneity, and your comic interpretation was brilliant because it was believable, and a very easy track to fall into with comedy is for it not to be believable. I thought that was lovely. Your strange fruit was such an important choice, and I loved the way you had the beauty of some of the images with that kind of harsh reality. I think, you know, performance shouldn't be, when we're at your age, all cute and pink and lovely and isn't that nice. Performance should make us think, it should progress us, it should move us on. So your choice as a person of colour had such importance and resonance, and that's what I would hope everybody can do in terms of their performance, is actually take something important that we need to change in the world and run with it. So I enjoyed that. Thank you very much, Kambua.
Your poem, your opening, I felt this was a focused performance, and I too have written about your resonant vocal performance and quality, which really grabs us, and you conveyed the sombre mood of the poem, and I thought you used the punctuation of the poem effectively to shape the thinking. You really built the pressure in the poem, because it really works up to that end, doesn't it? Like what is going to happen, and this was reflected in your careful shaping of the poem's key words. But I think your work is mature. This word kept coming back. Your maturity. Secret Gardener was a great sense of adventure and anticipation, and I felt like your work built to an exciting climax. Again, your vocal tone and colour is just developing really beautifully. Your opening of Every Brilliant Thing was light-hearted, and then you had this very clear, sensitive mood change. Your diction's very good. and I think you can explore pause even more because you're really brave with it as we kind of find memories in our head. Sometimes it just takes us time to find them, and it helps our audience to really see them too. And I thought this had a bittersweet quality, and your work is very promising. Thank you.
Would you like us to announce this one now, or prolong the agony a little longer?
It's entirely up to you.
Let's prolong the agony a little longer. Okay, let's talk about seniors. James, where are you? Hi, James. I think that Hamlet was, wow, turbocharged. I don't know where you get that kind of energy from on a Friday night, but I'll have a bit of whatever you're drinking, because that was, oh my goodness, bouncing off the walls. The great thing, of course, about Shakespeare is you can do whatever you like with it, as long as you can justify it within the text. And it was, you know, so strong and so relentless, really, in terms of what you were doing. You've got his kind of distress coming through there really nicely. Nice immediate sense of the different character coming through with Trigorin, and you were using some very subtle physicality to pull that off. Excuse me. Lungs in the time of COVID, it's very interesting. I think your Charlie Brown will live long in people's memory because it was just delightful. It was charismatic, charming, goofy, just about believable, so it was just hitting all those, that sort of extreme comic interpretation. And then, considering your piece was about compulsion, we had that final poem which was compelling, actually, which I thought was lovely. Just really charming, and so nice to see someone saying, actually, here it is, here is everything I've got. You threw the kitchen sink at that, you know, which is lovely, because there's the natural thing is to hold back and not quite give everything to an audience, because it's a very intimate, very vulnerable situation to be in. And I thought you shared so much with us. Thank you very much.
Izzy, just wave again. You're right at the back, aren't you, Kate? Just make out a silhouette. Mother of Cradle told me I thought it was a really thoughtful performance, and your work has a really lovely lyrical quality, and your voice works really well, marries really well with that really promising work. I love the shift into Confessions of a Scary Mom, a lively performance of this character. The work how you kind of addressed the conversational feel of the piece, and you pointed the colloquial language effectively. I just wondered, this is so much coming from a mummy of a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old, if you might make her even more exhausted and bedraggled, because you've got this amazing hair, like I just it looks so gorgeous, but to a tired mummy. And your things I know to be true. Again, as Rebecca saying, a really brave opening. You slowed it down. You embodied the kind of the grief and how kind of visceral it is. I love that word. I'm going to explore that word, visceral. I really felt the tension in your body and mind. This was a very thought-provoking piece. Thank you very much.
Alexander, where are you?
Hello, hi. I've got just a few. We're keeping it really positive because you're all so fantastic. You're all so brilliant. What is there to say, really? But there are a few that perhaps you'd like to consider on everyone's sheets. Yours, I'm going to say out loud though. Can you get your hair out of your face? Because you're so expressive and you get the characters. Every single thing that you did was character driven, not Alexander driven, which was so lovely. And you could tell that from the very beginning, where you just took your time and then let the audience in. My drama teacher used to carry around a stack of hair clips, and she used to sort of pin our hair back like that. So I'm going to make a suggestion that if that hair doesn't get gelled back, your teacher might like to do that. I don't know, I'm sure you'd find it thrilling as well. It was really naturally delivered, that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, with just the right tone, I thought. And I very much enjoyed My Family and Other Animals. There's a slight diffidence in what you do, which actually allows us to come in. It makes us as an audience lean in a little bit. A famous actor called Nigel Hawthorne said that whenever he could feel an audience needed to just sort of pull themselves together and listen, he would actually reduce his volume a little bit, so they had to lean forward. And actually there's a certain element of that in what you do. It makes us lean forward and engage. I thought your Hamlet was really brave, and I really liked the swoosh up to that mental state. So we actually got the smallness coming through so that those declamations were really spontaneous. And I like the circularity of what you ended with as well. It was very natural, very sensitive, I thought, and sincere work. Thank you very much. Do you know, the nice thing is saying to a class, you know, you're all winners, and really, really meaning it. I mean, you are. Honestly, the standard is off the scale, and that doesn't just represent however long you've been working on these pieces, it represents everything you've been doing ever since you were, you know, that small, and everyone who's fed into your journey is just beautiful and brilliant. Okay.
There's one thing I just wanted to say. I feel like we should also acknowledge just these extraordinary circumstances. That, you know, we keep saying, people think, you know, we're getting back to this, whatever this new normal is, but it's amazing anyway, the work that you're doing. But we're still working in a pandemic. How incredible and how privileged are we all to be here tonight.
And these amazing people who have actually said, no, we're not going online, no, we're not going to postpone it, we're going to do it. You know, so for the organisers and your grit, yeah, should we have another clap? Yeah.
I think more people this year than ever, under the circumstances, have realised what a contribution arts and creativity makes to everybody's lives. This isn't some rarefied thing that only a few people get involved in. It touches everything that we do, and it's so great to see young people engaged so much with it. I understand that the winners were Kambua and Alexander. And I understand, again, the judges had a hard time, but I can see why they were chosen. And for them specifically, I wish them all the best in whatever they choose to do as their future career, whether that is related to the arts or not. For everyone who took part, you should feel unbelievably proud of yourself. The standard was just so high. And for everyone who felt a little bit disappointed that they couldn't go along and watch, and I include myself as one of those, I just think it's brilliant that the organisation managed to find a COVID secure way of ensuring this happened, even if it wasn't in the way that it normally does. So thank you all very, very much for allowing me to say this today. I wish I could have been there. You all did absolutely brilliantly, and here's hoping that whoever the mayor is next year gets to come and see you in person. Thank you.